I'm Alison Lange Engel, CEO of Ceros, and this is the Engagement Principles, a series about how bold ideas, creative conviction, and intentional storytelling drive real results in our highly distracted world.
One of the pieces of content that is rising to the top in this environment is customer stories, customer voice, reviews and testimonials. Like, that is not only not going anywhere, if anything, it's standing out more because people really want to hear from customers who look just like them, who have similar needs and use cases. So that's another area we're investing pretty heavily on.
That's Amanda Malko, CRO at Thinkific and former CMO. Most revenue leaders focus on hitting numbers. Amanda focuses on the stories that drive those numbers. Today, we'll talk about storytelling, creativity, and guiding principles from the CRO chair. Let's get started. Hi, Amanda. It's so good to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Engagement Principles. I'm excited to jump in today. But why don't we start by just having you introduce the company, what you're focused on, and really your role and really what you're trying to drive this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Chief Revenue Officer at Thinkific. We're a learning commerce platform. So we help companies create, market, and sell online courses and communities. And my scope is really, it's all of go-to-market. So everything from support to sales and marketing and customer success. And we're really focused on driving relationships with our customers is actually the most important thing that we're doing this year. So of course, like all companies, we're trying to grow and get more new customers, but a huge focus for us is really on delivering more value to our existing customers and building better relationships. So this topic is very appropriate for our focus this year.
And a key part of what you're trying to do, and I think every C-level executive in a company, but especially when you're running go-to-market, is really honing your messaging. So I would love to hear how you approach it. On other podcasts and in your content, you talk about taking a ruthless prioritization to messaging, and I love that. I love that phrase in general for how to drive growth in a company, but would love to hear how you approach your messaging and storytelling.
I force us to fit it on a page in like reasonably large font. And if we can get it down to a page like the most concise articulation of our story or a value proposition, I feel like we can do our jobs pretty well. But when we don't have it crystallized on a page, whether it's here or anywhere else, I find that usually your core team doesn't know the message, so your customers really don't know the core message. And from a strategic perspective, we actually had a rebrand earlier this year, so we spent a ton of time on messaging. We did a lot of quant analysis, both with customers and with the market. And what's interesting is I love when quant matches qual. I basically came back and I said, well, that sounds like what I hear talking to customers every day. So it's always nice when what you see and you spend all this time assessing what's going to land, what's going to resonate. And when it comes back and matches what you hear from customers every day, you've got the right message. So I think ruthless prioritization is important. And when it comes to storytelling, it's really about listening to customers and making sure that you're marrying back the right language and value. And of course, your product has to deliver on it.
Let's spend a minute on this topic. We did a bunch of qual and quant research when I was at LinkedIn in particular. Were there any surprises that came out of that? Either words you were using that people didn't understand, or things from left field, right, that you guys had a ton of conviction in, and then that's not what was being reflected back?
So yes, one of the questions that we asked was how customers self-identified. That seems like maybe a small thing, but we serve everybody from individual entrepreneurs all the way up to, medium and even large enterprise companies. And so we kind of wanted to understand, is there a term that really encapsulates them? And creator has been bandied about quite a lot for especially experts. And it did not come up that often, actually, including among those people who might identify themselves. And there wasn't one term. It was everything from entrepreneur to business owner to, learning management specialist. And so I think we realized that you probably just want to lead with value and not try and overly identify your customer set, because really what they're looking for from you is not tell me who I am, but tell me what you could do for me. And I know that seems small, but I see a lot of companies that struggle with who are our customers? What do we call them? And I think what we learned is they're not one thing. They self-identify a lot of ways, but they have shared needs, and that's where we should focus. So maybe that was one thing. And then I think we thought a lot about what they thought was valuable. Like what we thought they would think is valuable ranked lower than what they actually prioritized. And so it really helped us hone in on, we could do a lot of things, but if we can only say 2 or 3 things, what are those? And so we had a few of them right, but not all of them.
And as part of the rebrand, was it really soup to nuts in terms of the core messaging, tagline, visual identity, all of it? Where did you?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And then how you're a few months with it out in the wild. What are proof or signals that you look for, right, to indicate that it's being pulled through?
So a couple of things. One was immediate market feedback. So when we rolled it out, we actually rolled it out to customers and partners first before the broader market. So we gave them a preview, but the immediate feedback was, I feel like you are showing up the way that I see you finally. I mean, to the point where partners were like, this really reflects what I think your value is, who I think you're here to serve, the types of people I serve. We heard that from our partners a lot. So that was the first validation that we had something right, was that it was exciting to the people that we consider and hold most closely, which is our customers and partners. Because there is a lot of times when those rebrands don't go super well with your closest audiences. And that's
the first part of the litmus test, right?
Exactly. And then I would say the second thing is we wanted to see that conversion rates on the website were up, and they were immediately. And then the final kind of lagging indicator for us is that we're attracting more of the mid-market customer that we are increasingly going after. And previously, our website really only spoke to more of the solo entrepreneur or creator, and we really are for businesses, and we wanted to see more of those businesses coming through. And we've seen some pretty dramatic increases in that, and just speaking their language, showing our customers who look like them on the website. Simple things, but it helps when your rebrand is really a doubling down on your brand and your most important customers, not a pivot away, which for us, it was very much just doubling down on where we see the most success already.
And clarifying, simplifying.
Exactly. The ruthless prioritization piece was pretty important. We were trying to serve too many different needs and audiences before.
Yeah, let's spend a minute on the audience segmentation and messaging and content, and how you show up on the website or how you show up in a support channel is one part of building trust. What are the other parts, right, that when you think about this kind of end-to-end customer experience that you're looking to drive, what are the other ingredients for that trust building that's so important to get to that customer experience that you think will really break through, not only as you acquire new customers, but, retain them over time?
Building trust starts with being clear about expectations, and then you have to deliver on it, which seems so simple, but it's actually, the first part is getting the messaging right. What's our value? What can you expect from us as a company? And then you have to consistently deliver it across the board. We finally have personas and a manageable number of them, and then we actually built different messaging, but it all aligns together for each of them. We now have content for each of them that speaks to the value as well as the use case that they have for our product. And then we actually built support work streams that support those customers differently. And even like a person who signs up for the trial who is probably earlier in their company journey, they might be a handful of employees, they can get a different experience when they're having guided onboarding versus a company who might have 25 or more employees. We have a different experience for them. So we really stepped back and thought about, what is the value they need? How do we build trust by being clear about what they're going to get? And then how do we make sure we consistently deliver that, all the way from the types of content you see from us and that we put out, but also when you sign up, what is your onboarding experience? And are we delivering the same level of value? Because it's really easy to put out great content and then someone signs up and you're like, great, you're on your own. I gave you the white paper that was supposed to help you with that. But we really feel like we needed to follow that all the way through.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's spend a few minutes maybe on content. People are still shipping white papers, right? There's a big movement towards video, right? That's been going on for years. Yes. People are living in social feeds. It's message, content to channel. Do you start with the channel first to inform what's the best content factor? Like, we'd just love to hear you break down kind of your content strategy overall and execution.
We sort of start with the persona. Then we start with what are the themes or the things that we think we need to make sure we're championing, and we tailor them to the persona. For example, our theme this second half is all about helping our customers sell and sell learning and best practices for selling learning. And so we've actually got a content strategy that dials that for a company who's got 250 employees and is really quite sophisticated at that, all the way to someone who's just starting out. And for us, we kind of start with what value do we want to provide? What are the themes? And then we back into it based on the persona. From a channel perspective, I think content is still so key. Like, it is how people are going to engage with you, because they want to see that you have something valuable to say before they want to see that you've got something valuable to sell. And so we still lean very heavily on content. I think what's changed is quality over quantity is much more important these days. And so it's better to do a few things really well and figure out how you can remessage them over and over again, because you do need that for people to see it, as opposed to what I think before was such an SEO driven play. And I'm actually kind of glad we're having to get away from that, because it's not working as well, because I don't actually think it was delivering what we ultimately want to deliver, which is a lot of customer value. Ranking on Google helps us, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best content to help our customers. So if anything, I think it's helped us refocus on quality.
I love that. Yeah, I'm in that camp. I think there are many companies and brands that are in the other, right? And it's a tempting thing, right, to chase right, especially in the AI driven world, to kind of ship 50 ebooks. But you could argue no one needs 50 ebooks. And is that just, lining up to a marketing dashboard versus where we started our conversation, which was how are you aligned to customer value?
Yeah. And I think one of the pieces of content that is rising to the top in this environment is customer stories, customer voice, reviews and testimonials. Like, that is not only not going anywhere, if anything, it's standing out more, because people really want to hear from customers who look just like them, who have similar needs and use cases. And so that's another area we're investing pretty heavily on, both on our owned, website and channels, but also on partner sites or review sites or wherever we can get PR. Honestly, I think is having PR and social is having a resurgence, because that kind of content works really well there, and much better than just, hearing a customer or hearing from a company that shares, we could share a white paper, but it's much better to have our customers share their own story in their own voice on their channels.
Operationalizing content is another thing. So I would love to hear how you have, in your 18 months, and even drawing on all of your awesome other brands that you've led in the past, what are the steps to kind of operationalize a shift in content strategy and get to personas, right? Have the right content, find the right balance between, messaging and brand. We'd just love to hear, is it a small team of people leveraging agencies? Like, how do you actually ship, the right content, in the right places?
Yeah, it's I think MailChimp might actually be a good example of this, because MailChimp probably had more content than almost any brand I've seen. Just a tremendous volume of content from the legacy of that brand, but also just it was a core part of the marketing strategy for MailChimp. And the thing that I think worked really, really well was treating content strategy as precious brand strategy. And it really was. It was articulated on a page. It was very clear thematics. It was tied to channels and personas. And it was orchestrated by a central, literally person, and then eventually a team. But in the beginning, it was just a person thinking about, okay, what's the value we want to put out? What's the strategy? And then how do I make sure everybody from my partner channel to my marketing team to, everybody knows what the strategy is, and then everybody has their own plays that they're going to run with. It became so helpful that we actually cascaded it all the way to support, so that if support needed something, there's a good chance we have some content that might help the customer as well. I think the orchestration comes from, just like any good brand, if you want it to have legs and be consistent and really carry staying power, it needs to have a strong strategy and ownership, but it also needs to have enablement across the organization, and depending on the nature of your company, potentially externally as well. Where I am now, a big part of our content strategy is enabling our sales team to sell with content on social platforms and actually give them a voice in a way that maybe they hadn't thought about before. Let's
spend a minute on creativity, since in kind of in this MailChimp example, how do you think about, from your seat now and even just drawing from your past, where do you feel like you're creating space for creativity? We can exist in such an efficiency macro environment right now. And I feel like you have to purposely elbow out some of the pressures I'm sure you feel in your role to create space for that innovation, for the crazy idea, for the hackathon of your own team. But would love to hear how you're such a creative person at heart. I think it's a passion of yours, how you got into marketing in the first place.
Yeah.
But would love to hear how you create space for that as a CRO.
I would say it needs championship from the highest levels. The thing that made MailChimp such a special brand was certainly the people, the quality of people, and the attention to the brand and the strategy. But if you knew that company, you knew it came from the founder. The founder cared. He had a very clear view of what he wanted that brand to be and what he was willing to invest, both in dollars, time, and his own attention in that. And it made all the difference. And so I try and do the same thing. Like with a rebrand, I didn't jump to that, right? Like there needed to be a very strategic reason for doing that. But once we had the reason, I really wanted the team to have the ultimate freedom to just go. And I actually had to at one point have a conversation where I was like, you're being way too precious. And we gave it the time and space to do it well. And we gave the team permission to like try things. Some of the things they tried were crazy. And, part of it is considering it. And where we ended up was perfect.
Yeah, that's very cool. When you think about kind of that intersection of brand, the messaging, and then the kind of the creative expression of that, are those kind of the three ingredients you think about in terms of getting to breakthrough engagement, standing out in a noisy market? Are there other components for you that really drive engagement?
I think it comes down to really powerful insights about what people need and who they are as people. And so I'll give you two examples. Like at MailChimp, the thing that people would always ask us about, unless it was Serial, the podcast, was usually about something in the product, actually. And it was about that moment, if anyone's used MailChimp or back in the day, when you went to send an email, there was like a sweaty finger going to push the button. And everybody would give us feedback on that. And they loved it. And it got their attention and it engaged them. And it's such a simple moment, but it's because the insight came from someone in product being like, people are so anxious to push this button because it's going to go out to their whole list.
Yeah, that's a moment that matters. Like that really matters.
Yeah. And just showing empathy for like, we get that this is really stressful and you're going to do it.
You're about to send 1 million emails. I hope they're correct. I hope they're targeted. I hope the data works. Yeah.
People loved it. And it became this like talkable viral moment about the company that was a product experience, but it engaged them because it was a deep insight. I also love this Liquid Death ad that they just put out. If you've seen it, the arrestingly refreshing ad, which just is such an interesting, like it comes from an insight about like the people who drink that product and advertising. Right. And like, it's just, I think great insights and like human insights create a great thing to think about content and brand around and engage around. And I think we miss that in B2B sometimes. Yeah. Like I can come up with 10 different ideas, but if I really sit here and think about what's the pain or the need that the human on the other side of my product is experiencing, there's probably a way to do everything we're doing in a more engaging way by being just one step more human or vulnerable about it.
And just more clear, right? Getting to simplicity. Yeah. Like what is that kernel? We had an experience at LinkedIn in the early days building the advertising business, and we were enamored that we had all of this scale. So when we did our own, so scale was in our core messaging, as you would expect from a large, professional site like LinkedIn. And this was the early days. So we had less scale than LinkedIn does now. And the quant feedback was like, can you target people? Because that's what I'm trying to do. We don't really understand what scale means. And we're like, oh, of course. Like we were just like navel gazing Silicon Valley marketing scale. And people didn't really know what we were talking about. And we're like, yeah, we could do that. And they're like, well, just tell us that. That would be great. That's what we want to buy. So we like pivoted our messaging and we got rid of some of the verbiage that we were really enamored with. And so it's always so important to, like you said, creating the space to find that insight, find the audience vulnerability, right? You guys tapped into the emotional feeling someone has when they're about to hit send. That's like really powerful to think of.
Yeah. And I think those moments often come just from talking to your customers and being like, what gets them really emotional, whether it's positive or negative or, frustrated, like whatever it is, it's if you go to where they have emotion around your space. And in B2B, I mean, we all use software. We have lots of emotion about it. We may not associate it that way, but we do. And so I think there's always something to dig deeper on.
Last question as it relates to content and creativity. Have you, when you think about that content, that journey, which is now so nonlinear that your prospects and customers are going on, have you thought about that content journey all the way through, right? What is that support interaction? What is that, which it's probably in product and technical. You have an automated response and you have, amazing humans working with probably your biggest customers. How do you wrangle all of those needs? Or do you kind of map out that journey all the way through? I just would love to hear how you think about almost like a content system of record throughout all these different moments.
So one example of this is we're experimenting with like a content ingestion engine, for lack of a better word, at Thinkific that'll take content. And when I say content, I mean white papers, case studies, and an FAQ repository that's just training basically an AI model on anything you could want to know about our product. And then thinking about what would it look like if you could just engage with an AI agent that was trained on all of our content, our product, our pricing, and just ask it whatever you want about your business model, about what you're trying to do with us, or even about the product. And so we're building that internally first, and we've got a version for customers that's sort of running in parallel. And we're starting with our CS and sales team. So yeah, it's
That's great. I'm talking to so many friends of mine who are in different roles in different types of companies, and it seems like this agentic model is a first stop, right, for a lot of go-to-market leaders. You're building most of it in-house, and a lot of the content you had. Have you rolled it out yet? What are the early learnings from it?
We're in the middle of, so we did a version of it, and what we realized is there's a lot that is missing in the way that you structure support content. And so a lot of times the questions that you ask when you're first engaging with a company are more higher level questions than when you're in support. So we actually are having to build that, what I'll call first layer of content. And so that's
the knowledge base, basically. You have to codify all of that.
How to sell the product, how to position the product, how to differentiate the product, why are we different from competitors? Those weren't things that we had in a really structured way, because we kind of had top of funnel content, a sales team, and then like really deep support knowledge base.
I think a lot of companies are in that, kind of hierarchy or layer cake. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now we need to build what's really one of the more compelling pieces, which is like, why should I choose you? And what can you do? And will you meet my RFP needs? And like all of that stuff needs to be structured for it to be useful. So that's what we're building out. And then I'll let you know how the pilot goes.
Okay, cool. We'll have you back. We'll have you back for that part of it. That is so cool. We wouldn't complete a show without spending some time on AI. How are you framing it for the company or your CEO, the executive team discussion or mandate on, how you're using it for efficiency, for growth, just for, team productivity? Just would love for you to walk us through, where you guys are on the AI journey.
Every team is using it in some capacity, but we have definitely not mandated it for efficiency. In fact, I think it's too myopic to sort of mandate it for efficiency. In certain teams, it's definitely helped efficiency. So like in our support team, they're probably further along than most teams in using AI, and it's helped tremendously in reducing ticket volumes and deflecting kind of core customer questions. So this team can focus on kind of higher order interactions with customers. But I think we've really focused on championing great use cases, whatever they look like. And so for marketing, they're finding it's more about how do I get better ideas and structure it across different channels and formats. And maybe that doesn't help efficiency, but it helps me personalize content and create better experiences for customers. Yeah. And that's great. And we've brought in a couple of experts in their field, because I think AI training is not a one size fits all thing. So we brought in an AI for marketing expert to train our marketing team on different ways to use AI. And our video team uses it all the time for video production. We've got a pretty sophisticated video team here. And they're doing some really amazing things, like turning around things that it's just blowing my mind. Kind of like, the liquid death ad where you're like, that's really all AI. It's pretty amazing. And I don't look at it, it's pushing the boundaries of creativity, but not necessarily an efficiency play. And so for us, we're early days, but I would say every team is utilizing it in their own unique way. And I think that's right. And then we have got an internal channel where teams share how they're using it and ideas for others that they can leverage. So It's been pretty fascinating to see like how different finance uses it from other teams. And I think that's right. I think that's where you want to be when you're on this journey, is bespoke use cases and really teaching everyone in the company how you're using it.
Yeah, we're big believers in the human plus AI, right, to get to personalization, better value, better outcomes, right? And there are some parts where we are seeing, teams have some efficiency, but the tip of the spear is just getting closer, delivering more customer value at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
exactly. I think the biggest thing that we haven't fully unlocked but are on a journey to is, what does it mean for how we transform our customer experience in the product, but also around the product? And so that's a great example where I see people hold back, but it's like, I don't know, should we use AI SDRs? Like, is that a good experience? It's not about efficiency. Would it be a better experience? So we're
Right.
kind of in a greenfield place where we're testing a lot of different ways we can use AI across our go-to-market, but also in our product.
Do you find that your peers at the executive table, you guys are aligned on how to think about AI in the company? Do you have a technical leader who's really, the advocate and supporting people through the journey? Is it more decentralized, right? And each exec is kind of taking an approach. We'd love to hear how you guys are bringing it down to the everyday work.
Within R&D, we do have an AI expert who helps cross-pollinate within the teams what they should be doing. We've started doing a lot of AI code generation. There's a goal for how much has to be generated through AI. Then we have an ops guild, an AI guild that actually meets regularly, and it's self-run and it's volunteer people who get together, and there's someone represented on, I believe, every function. And what I love about that is no one was told. They opted into it because they're passionate. And I do think that's what you need to impact change. So we have that group, and they are part, like this idea of this knowledge hub. It's very cross-functional, and it actually came out of that group. And now we're piloting it with a company that is helping us create this engine. And it's the first time this company has ever done it. And if it works, they're going to make this a product. And so that kind of innovation came from a small group of passionate cross-functional individuals. Then we have at the executive level, we have a charter about what we believe about AI, what our values are around AI, and what we expect of everyone at AI. And then for our next review cycle, we're actually going to bring in AI-related questions, not so that people are like graded on it, but just so that it stays top of mind, because we believe part of our value is to drive this is really about career development as much as it is about company development. And so it helps keep it top of mind in the development conversation as well. So those are some of the things that we've done. And then, of course, like individual training where we feel like it's needed. And on go-to-market, we have someone who's actually auditing core processes and going around to each team to come back with a recommendation on where we should focus next.
Yeah, we're finding it's the better together story. And I think it's awesome to think about it as the value proposition to the team, right? Is this notion of upskilling and learning, and they need to bring curiosity and a growth mindset, right? And then the company, wants to support them on that journey too.
And I think it's helpful as executives to share both vulnerability about what we don't know, because some of this is just being honest about we all are learning, right? And so I don't know everything, and I'm probably going to learn more from an IC on my team than they're going to learn from me here, potentially. But then I'm also out there sharing, like, here's what I'm doing, and even prompt ideas, so that people see that we're all kind of equals when we're learning, which I love.
Very cool.
Exactly.
Any other trends in the market across go-to-market or company building that, you're spending time thinking about?
I think go-to-market is it's increasingly becoming more about right message, right channel, right journey, and less about marketing does this and hands off to sales, who hands off to CS. Like, those lines are really blurring. I mean, even sales, when you start to think about, automation and AI, and where's the line where you need someone to come in and actually provide that value, I feel like there's a lot of lines blurring in go-to-market right now. And I think it's really interesting with AI to think about what orchestration looks like in go-to-market.
And how personal you can get, and understanding the signal of where that person is in the journey. It's super interesting. And I think that's the rise of the CRO role, right? Where companies are bringing, sales, marketing, ops, and then, often, support and renewals and the post-sale journey under one roof, which wasn't as common, right? Most B2B companies grew up with pure functions across all those leaders. And we did the same. We brought in a new CRO in January, and to have that same holistic view of getting back to how do you get to the single best customer value, right? And how are you communicating that across channels so that, you don't show up, your company brand isn't your org chart, right?
Yes.
Your company brand is your value, right? And the experience.
Yeah. And it's harder than ever to orchestrate those things, which I think is why, to your point, you're seeing more, singular leaders over go-to-market, because it is a lot that's changing and a lot to coordinate.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you. That's so interesting. I love it. This has been great. I so appreciate the time. I ask everyone the same question before they go. How do you nurture creativity in your own life?
Oh, I loved this question. I saw that you asked this question. I love it. And now I want to know what you do too. But for me, I spend a lot of time in nature. So I live in the woods. So that helps. I find that fuels my creativity, which is why I live in the middle of nowhere. But then when I'm out, I try and see art. And for me, that fuels me to see art. And so I spend a lot of time in Vancouver where we're headquartered, and I had an hour the last trip I was there, and I just popped into an art museum. I was like, I have an hour. I'm going to the Vancouver Art Museum. And so I don't get a ton of time to do that, but when I do, I really try even to squeeze in a little bit of inspiration. For me, art is a great source of that.
I love that. Very similar. This is why when we first met each other and worked at the Series A startup 20 years ago, we probably have so much of a common thread. I'm the same. I'm an outdoor person, not, particularly skilled in any of it, but you'll find me walking early morning or in the evening or on a paddleboard or, I just need to be outside. Sunlight is crucial. And then same, I love art, being around artists. And yeah, very, very similar sources of inspiration, which is no surprise.
Yeah, no surprise. So next time I see you, we'll have to do paddleboarding or an art class or something.
Yes. And you'll bring the results of your pilots. Yeah, I know if there's anyone who can pull it off, it's you. So thank you, Amanda. It's been awesome having you. I know our viewers and listeners will love the insights you share. So thank you. And we look forward to having you back.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back soon with bold thinkers, creative leaders, and disruptive builders, reshaping what it means to truly engage in today's landscape. If this resonated with you, subscribe and follow the show. We're just getting started. This is the Engagement Principles. Thanks for listening.